How often have you struggled with this concept that we all hear about a healthy lifestyle? What does that even mean based on what I'm doing for my exercise, what I'm eating every day? It can be very confusing, especially with the newest fad diet that hits you when you're standing in the lane at the supermarket and you're seeing all these magazines, new diet, new lose weight fast. It can be very, very confusing. So, I brought Andrea Lopes. She's a certified nutrition and fitness trainer. She's going to unlock in a very simple way what eating your way to a healthy lifestyle means. How do you maintain that? Why it's important short term and long term to your health. She's going to share some tactical things you can do today to stop that yo-yoing, dieting, stop that restrictions that you constantly feel, to make sure that you understand how to lead that healthy lifestyle. So, let's dive into this episode of You're in Charge, Conversations that Spark Change. Chat with Andrea about a healthy lifestyle. All right, Andrea, let me just start off asking you this question because we had talked about it with a previous guest and I was interested in her answer. I'm interested in yours as well. What is the biggest either misconception about food or diet, how you're eating and what food does for you? The biggest misconception people have, or why do people struggle so much with either understanding food and or diet?
Okay. So I believe that one of the biggest misconceptions about food is taking away whole food groups. There's this big push for a keto diet or
Mhm.
a vegan diet or vegetarian or pescatarian. And what everyone needs to realize is that really every one of those diets is
Mhm.
really coming from the same place, which is let's put plants at the forefront. So,
Mm.
where I believe that people really get it wrong is that they're eliminating full food groups like complex carbs, right? We need those. Our bodies run on them, they are very beneficial to our body. But what happens is all the carbs are lumped into one group. So you've got cookies, which are carbs, and then you've got something like quinoa or sweet potatoes, still carbs. Which one's the good one? Obviously, the sweet potato and the quinoa. But what happens is those healthier, slow carbs that are absolutely amazing for our bodies have been villainized, that they're going to make us fat, whenever it's really those simple sugars that
Mhm.
are causing a problem. And then just circling back around to, we need carbohydrates, we need fat in our diet, we need
Right.
protein in our diet. I'm okay with whatever way a client wants to get that in. If they prefer to have a vegan diet, okay,
Mhm.
we can work with that. But we need to make sure that we're getting everything out or everything in and really nourishing our bodies completely.
So that's interesting. So there's a couple things in there I wanted to just focus on.
Sure.
I agree that whole villainization of carbs are bad. I remember years ago when it was all the low fat diet, right? Non fat, low fat. I remember someone who worked for me, they had a box of those, remember those Snackwell cookies?
Yes.
And they're just eating them. And I said, well, why, you're eating it. Oh, well, they're low fat. They're no fat. They're good for me. And I
Right.
said, well, eating a box of anything is not good for you, but even having a few of them. So, do you think that also this whole craze of the newest diet, now it seems to be, plant-based is coming, with all of the Impossible Burger and all of that. But then previously it was keto, right? And everybody's eating, and there were people who took that to an extreme and saying, I can eat a pound of bacon, but that's good for me. And I'm going, I don't know if a pound of bacon is good for anybody at a seating. But, but is it something that we just always want these results quickly instead of just finding a way to eat long term that will always help us, that you know, we want to keep jumping from keto to this diet to that diet to this diet. Is it just we're not willing to wait, or it's I'm always just curious why this jump from diet to diet to diet.
You know what? I really love that you brought that up, because I do think that one of the biggest places that people fail when they're
Mhm.
trying to lose weight is they get on these crazes. And if they don't see the scale move 5 pounds in a week, they get totally discouraged, right? It's that they want something super quick. But how you sustain weight loss and a healthy body, you know, if you're trying to lose 30 pounds, let's
Right.
say, the best way to do it and to keep it off is losing a pound and a half a week. These big jumps are actually not good for your metabolic health, and your body is going to fight against them.
Well,
So,
I always say, to your point, I've always said you didn't gain 20 pounds in a week, right?
yes,
You didn't gain 20 pounds in a month. You gained,
yes.
everyone says, look at COVID right now. People said, oh, I gained about 20 pounds this last year,
Mhm.
but they want to lose those 20 pounds in a month. And I said, one, to your point, is it's not good for you. I've seen it. I've seen it in my family. I have a brother who he finally
Mhm.
has a good plan, but he would be on these, as soon as he would gain weight, he would drop down into some extreme where I'm eating a cup of lettuce, a cup of this, and look at this, I lost the weight. I said, that's not sustainable, because as soon as you put normal food back in, even eating healthy food, you're going to gain some weight, you're going to get frustrated, then you're going to stop your diet, and then you're going to gain. And it's this yo-yo versus
Yeah.
saying a year, like you said, 30 pounds in a year from today, I want to be 30 pounds less. I think it then builds in a style of life that is maintainable
Right.
because you don't have the ups and downs. But do you think it's part marketing? I mean, that these companies are, you know, selling us all of this because they know that we're in a rush?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be, my health goals aren't necessarily to lose weight for myself, but wouldn't it be nice if I could just, you know, do this and in 10 days have that six pack or the abs,
Right.
the arms, you know? And I know that where people are really failing is the consistency, those small steps, like waking up, drinking 16 ounces of water first thing, getting some sunlight into your eyes to lower your melatonin and get your body going for the day. Simple things like that can make drastic changes, but those kinds of things, it's not going to happen overnight. But as you
Right.
stack these on top of each other and become consistent with it, it's going to help with your health, your energy, and then once you get the health and the energy, the weight loss occurs. So that's really something with my clients. Most of them come to me for, Andrea, I need to lose this weight. But I really kind of flip the script and tell
Mhm.
them once we get healthy, the rest will fall into place.
That makes sense. And listening to that, I agree. I mean, I do that. I get up in the morning and I drink 2 glasses of water with a little bit of lemon off, and I drink water all the time. That's one of the things that even my children, they don't drink soda. They don't really drink juice. They never really have. They just drink
Right.
water. And people go, how did you do that? I said, I didn't have soda in the house, because we're not big soda drinkers. So,
Right.
but to your point, telling someone that that's not sexy. That doesn't sound
No.
great. I can't go to somebody and say, how are you getting in shape? I drink water. It doesn't sound good. I'm
Right.
on this diet. I'm on that diet. I am this. But I think one of the things you also touched on early is this idea of restriction. Anytime people think they're restricting something, eventually they're either going to think, well, then I can reward myself. I'm going to lose 10 pounds by not eating X, but boy, when I lose those 10 pounds, I'm going to eat X. This makes no sense to me. You're going to reward yourself with the thing that you've either taken away. Why not just cut back and have less of that? Yes, it takes you longer, but if you like having ice cream, don't have ice cream every day, or have ice cream once a week, or have one scoop instead of four scoop. There's a lot of different strategies, but I think from what I'm hearing from you is it's people want it fast and they'll jump to the next fast thing. But when you're becoming addicted to finding the fast thing instead of actually getting addicted to a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and you're really setting yourself up into these cycles of deprivation. And then I hate to use the word binging, but that's kind of what
Mhm.
happens, right? Because if you're eating ice cream every single day, you're not controlling those cravings because you deprived yourself of the nutrients so much
Right.
that there's only so long you can willpower through it, to where finally you just give in to the Haagen-Dazs and go all out because you've been depriving yourself. That whenever you are just eating sustainable, a well-balanced plate is really what I talk about a lot.
Okay, let's pause on that then.
Yes.
Describe to me when you say a well-balanced plate, because again, people who are listening, they're going to say, well, she's saying I can't have ice cream. No, she's not. But we've talked about good carbohydrates being lumped in with bad. But if you're saying I'm looking at a plate,
Yes.
what's on a plate? Again, depending on, just for a normal person who is in good health, what's a healthy plate of food look like?
Sure. So I would want some healthy fat in there. So you can get that from avocado, flax seeds, even, there's several types of nuts depending on what your body can handle.
Right.
That would be a small portion though. Like you're talking a quarter of an avocado, a couple tablespoons of flaxseed. A 3/4 of the plate is going to be vegetables. And the more color, the better.
Right.
Think of it as, it's kind of funny, but like taste the rainbow, but we're not talking about Skittles, right? The more colors, the better. The more colors, the more antioxidants and the more fiber. And that fiber is what's really going to fill you up. So
Right.
half a plate to 3/4 a plate. I'm a huge veggie eater, so
Right.
mine usually is abundantly, on the plate. And the great thing about the vegetables also is nobody's gaining weight eating too much broccoli, right? Like
Mhm.
go to town. So I will have clients who are like, well, is it a cup of broccoli or 2 cups of broccoli? Who cares?
Right.
I mean, at that point, like it's broccoli, just go for it. As long as you're not slathering it in something, right? Cheese sauce or something.
Cheese sauce. I was going to say hollandaise sauce. It's like,
right. And the nice thing is those vegetables, depending on which ones you pick, can also have your complex carb, right? If you get in some nice root vegetables with that. So you could do some broccoli and then some butternut squash or some, half a sweet potato.
Now, but so someone's going to see, so sitting here listening, someone's going to say, okay, now I'm confused. Use sweet potato and butternut squash aren't those carbs. So that's
Right.
where people get confused when you say half of my plate of vegetables. Now you just said carbs, is for them, broccoli's a vegetable, that's carb. So
Right.
explain that.
Right. So, we'll do the vegetables, and then I do like to have a carbohydrate also on the plate. So half a sweet potato,
Right.
A serving of quinoa. I do like basmati rice thrown in there once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And even regular potatoes can be really good. Like we talked about earlier, that we've really villainized the carbohydrates, but these are things that they're from the earth. Our body knows what to do with that food.
Right.
And then the last thing on the plate is going to be some sort of protein. And with protein, this is where I am very picky. And quality. So pasture raised, grass fed, wild caught salmon or wild caught shrimp. I do like having fish a couple times a week because most of us are deficient in omega-3s, which are super important for our brains and our overall health. But making sure that that protein is the highest quality, and also understanding that these big like tomahawk steaks
Yeah.
aren't the amount that we need. You know, you can get 3 ounces of meat on your plate, and that's a great amount of protein. It's gonna fill you up. You're gonna hit your protein needs by the end of
Right.
the day, having 3 square meals a day. And you know, in our culture, we tend to have these huge portions of protein, and then like the sides are that big. I really
Right.
want the plate to be different.
Yeah.
Huge portions of vegetables, smaller portion of protein.
Well, and to your point, my grandmother used to always put vegetables on the plate, and even if you didn't like them, she would always say your plate needs color, meaning that your plate has to look
Yeah.
good for you to want to eat it. But and to your point, that 3 ounces for viewers, that's probably the size of a deck of cards,
Yeah.
right? Now, for most people, they say that's not enough because we've been trained over the last 20 years, the size of food has increased. You know, back when my parents, you know, your parents, you know, meat was a luxury, or that was something that, you know, you had, but you got one chicken to feed the family, or you got a couple steaks and fed the family. Not everybody gets a tomahawk steak the size of your head. So, of course, our visual cue is going to say that's not enough. But if you actually have that deck of cards, nice piece of salmon, and you have a half a sweet potato, and then you have your vegetables and whatever,
Your
if you
healthy
eat
fat.
that, you're healthy fat. If you eat that, you will be full. But I think also there's a big difference in people, the way they eat, part because you go to restaurants and you see the size. People don't eat till they're full. They eat till they are ready to burst,
Yeah.
versus I know, I can't remember, and I I think it's one of the, you know, could be Japan or China, one of the ones they said that they eat till they're 3/4 full and then they
Yeah.
stop, versus every day is Thanksgiving where it's appetizers and entree and then desserts, and we just go lay on the couch like big beached whales and then go, why am I gaining weight? Um, so I think that's another issue, is just visually we have to train ourselves to portion, but not feeling you're restricting the portions. That's just the right portion.
Right. It is the right portion. And you're absolutely right. It has become so cultural, right? Ingrained in our culture that more and more and more. And when you start to change up the plate and then you finish a meal and you feel like that 3/4 full,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a great feeling. But it starts with when you put the plate of food down in front of you, and you need to put this away. You
Right.
need to not have the television on. You
Mm-hmm.
need to, you know, digestion starts with smelling our food and cooking the food. So in that moment, you really need to hone in on what you're doing. And as you sit down, and you need to sit down because how many people are standing up and eating, or rushing, or eating in the car? I know.
Sometimes.
And sometimes it has to happen. Like, I do get that. You know, my son on the weekends will have like back to back soccer games, and sometimes I have to give him lunch in the car, right? But hopefully 95, 98% of the time, you're sitting down, you're removing all devices. And, you know, even the fact of sitting down, smelling your food first, so you
Mm-hmm.
can really get your salivatory glands going,
Yep.
because digestion starts before you even put the food in your mouth.
Yes, it
And
is.
then
It's that
slowing
it.
down, putting your
Yes.
fork down, you know, when all those things, we have become a society that just rushes through meals, which
Yes.
is another reason, if I ate my food faster, of course my brain and body aren't going to connect for a little bit, and that's whenever you're stuffed, right, even more.
Or even to that point is I eat it so fast, my body doesn't have time to tell me I'm full. So I
Yes.
go, I'm still hungry. And then you eat more. And then all of a sudden, you're right. It hits you like a ton of bricks where you go, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that last whatever it was.
Right.
But there's a reason why there's a whole industry now of all these prepared sized meals for people for weight loss. The reality is, no, if you think through this, this is the way you should be eating. That bowl of vegetables with some chicken and rice, that's the size of what you should be eating versus I'm going back for seconds and thirds and then complaining versus, well, that's what it is. But if you master it yourself, and I agree with you, sitting down, talking, slowing down, spending time eating, that's what a meal is supposed to be. But as you said, I'm guilty where I'm cooking, but then I got to go pick my one son up, or he gets this, the other one gets this, and we're eating and we're rushing. And I think that's also where a lot of the quote unquote fast food comes in, is that it's convenient, it's in, but we're not counting it as calories because it's not that big or it didn't really fill me up. But if you go look at calories, and now the menus have them, it's frightening. It's
Yeah.
frightening at some of these restaurants, literally a meal. I think there was one restaurant, I'm not going to name the name, but they had a pasta dish with like shrimp and Alfredo sauce. 2,000 calories was
Crazy.
that plate of food. 2,000. That's what you're supposed to have in a day.
And I would bet that on that plate of food, the amount of nourishment, like really good quality, real food, is like 20%. And I hate to say that, but like with a pasta dish, I can go there because I can kind of picture what you're saying.
Mhm.
And just the sauce and the pasta, because it's probably not like a really nice Italian restaurant where they're like rolling out the pasta and stuff like that. You know,
But it's just butter, it's cream, it's that.
yeah.
Then on
And
top
none
of
of
it,
that's nourishing you.
it's the bread to sop up every last bit of this, and it's salty and everything else. And the more conscious you can become, and I think there was one thing you said that, again, I want the listeners to really hear. Don't villainize food that you see. If you can recognize what that food is, then it's okay for you to eat it. Meaning
Right.
that if you pick it up and it's I don't care, white potato, whatever potato. Yes, some are going to have different nutrients, but the mere fact that you're eating that potato in its close to pure form, meaning that you either boil them or you roast them, a little bit of olive oil versus I'm mashing them with butter and I'm pouring in heavy cream, and then it doesn't look like it does. The more that you can eat things that are closer to its natural form, I would assume they're better for you. That's what I've been told.
What's the ingredients of a sweet potato? Sweet potato, right?
Right.
So, I love that you brought that up, because when there are certain times that maybe you have to grab something that is
Mhm.
convenient, and my rule of thumb is 5 ingredients or less, right? But the thing about real foods is, intuitively, you don't have to, like, it takes all the guesswork out of it. A blueberry is a blueberry, an avocado is an avocado. Any of that is coming from the ground, right?
Right.
Not being made in a factory, where not everything has to be put on the label. And that's just the
Right.
fact. We have this understanding, or yeah, I guess you could say understanding, where, on that food label, that it's telling us everything, but that's just not what it is. So you're really much farther ahead to try to steer clear of those things.
Mhm.
But if you have to go that direction, 5 ingredients or less, and that's really the ingredients that right?
Right, that you can pronounce.
That's always the best
That's
thing.
less than 27 letters and whatever.
Yes.
So let me ask you this then. So let's pivot a little bit. So we've talked about food, healthy food. One thing I admire about you is some of your posts on Facebook. I see your son embraces this as well. He seems to be, when he goes and grabs food, it's healthy. That's part because of what you keep in the house.
Mhm.
But for a lot of people, they're looking at their children and they say, well, I don't want to deny them some of those fun things. Either that's what I had, I had those sugary cereals, so I don't want to deny them, or I don't want them to be the only kid at school that when they open up their lunch, it's all fruits and vegetables, and the other kids have, ring dings and hostess cakes, and then they're going to feel odd. How do you deal with food for your son, who seems to be an incredibly good eater of this lifestyle and seems to embrace it?
Yeah, he is. He is such an incredible eater. And I will say that it started early on. I didn't even really do baby food, and this is for
Mhm.
the parents that have the young child. I mashed up real food,
Right.
and that's what he ate. But now he's 12 years old, and inevitably, just this year, it's kind of funny, hitting that middle school sixth
Yeah.
grade, he is seeing that he's got friends that have like Cheetos and Doritos and, Pringles and
Yes.
Ho-Hos and all this stuff. So it definitely, I don't have a rein on it like when he was maybe a little bit younger, where I could say every single thing that went into his mouth.
Right.
So what I've done over the years is really educate him about what a balanced plate looks like.
Right.
And then in our household, what I do is I don't want him I do not want to deprive him of never having those things, because I actually grew up in a household where that was what happened.
Sure.
And because I was an athlete, all my family was, and we weren't allowed to have those things. And that is not good either. So I'm not suggesting doing that. But what I do at the beginning of the week is I ask him, you've got one salty and one sweet junk treat for the week. What do you want? So when I go to the grocery store, that's what I get him. He knows then that throughout the week, that's all he gets.
Right.
Of junk. The rest of it is going to be nourishing food. And with that balance, because he doesn't have any kind of medical, conditions to where he can't eat those foods, he inevitably makes healthier choices.
Sure.
So he'll even say, this is a great example. This sweet treat for this week was chocolate ice cream. So I buy the very best, version I can,
Right.
Organic and all that. And because we're not loading the cupboards up with junk, I can spend a little bit more on that, right? So he had his ice cream early. He wanted it right after school. Okay. And he actually looked at me and he said, I'm going to burn this off at soccer. And I was like, okay, because we had been speaking earlier in the week about he was eating the sweet treat a little bit later in the evening. And I was telling him it could cause you to have issues sleeping. So maybe we move that up a little bit. So, I think it's about being honest with them and listening to them, letting them have say in it. So he also picks out like fruits and vegetables for the week. And like this week, it was blueberries and he wanted peppers and cucumbers in his lunch. So not forcing him to eat, okay, this is what I'm packing you. Here are your choices. What do you want in your lunch this week?
Right. And see, I think that's a great, and he's right on schedule, because my two boys, same thing. We mashed vegetables early on, didn't give them jarred food, made everything. But that's also where they stopped after they were done bottle feeding, breastfeed or whatever. They don't drink milk. They never drank milk. They never liked milk. And so even when they have cereal, which is odd to me, they'll eat dry cereal. And I'm going, okay. But I allow them, same thing. They're old enough now where they might want that cereal, and then they'll have it for a couple times, and then they're going, hey, can you make me some eggs this morning? Or, hey, can you make something else for me? And so they're asking. And then the rest of their meals, it's a healthy sandwich, or their snacks are good, or dinner time they're eating. They don't have a problem with that. But to your point, I'd never wanted them to feel that they couldn't have something. It's just, they also know they're not having it every day. So it goes back to athletes who train all the time and then they have a cheat day. But
Yeah.
if you eat well enough all the time, or as you said, 90% of the time, it doesn't feel good in your body to eat too much of that. Like if you
Right.
go all of a sudden eat big bowls of this, and even my son who loves ice cream, he would do it and then all of a sudden he would burn himself out on it. And then for 2 or 3 weeks, he wouldn't have it. Or he'll try something else or just skip it. But they're getting conscious of their own body, their own choices, because I said my role as a father and is that one, when they leave here, they know how to cook healthy foods. And number two, they understand how to eat for their own body. Like if you want to eat that and that's your decision later on in life, understand you're not going to feel well.
Right.
You're not going to feel great, but when you do, how do you feel? Oh, I like that better. And so again, that's all I can do is arm them with enough information. And I think for you, what I'm hearing is you're having conversations with your son as an adult, meaning you're treating him with that same respect versus you're too young to understand, just be quiet, eat that, which is not a good way for anything, for any of us to learn, especially kids.
And, I've shared with him a lot about my health journey and my struggles with a binge eating disorder and with my addiction to sugar. And so I'm very open and honest with him about all those things so that he knows, like, okay, my mom's this really healthy woman now, but she struggled with all those things,
So let's talk about that then. So again, we talk about taking charge. Talk to me about that a little bit, about, how it happened, where again, you just said addiction to sugar and
Mhm.
then what was the trigger that you finally said, I have to change? Because again, if somebody who's listening to this, when you start telling your story, they're going to say, oh, that's me. Yeah, I understand exactly what it is, but I don't know what to do. So let me talk about your story, but then also give the audience maybe one or two things that helped you or you did along your way to start taking charge, taking hold of this.
Absolutely. So, I was talking about the fact that I was a great athlete growing up, and we always ate very healthy meals. We had dinner, even if it wasn't till 8:30 at night, we had family dinner. My mom cooked every single night.
Mm-hmm.
Once I left the home, though, because I had not been subject to, I didn't even have a soda or fast food till I was
Right.
really like almost 18. And I found that those foods, like any of us, really, whoa, right? This tastes a lot different than the vegetables and the fruit. And I developed a binge eating disorder. It was very difficult and basically ran up till about 3 years ago. And it would be that deprivation cycle, right? Oh, you got to really restrict.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could only white knuckle through it for so long. And then I would crash into eating all kinds of junk. And it'd be like 2 or 3 days of that. And then I would go back to the restriction.
So talk to me, what was the junk? So what was, when you were being your binge mode, what were the type of foods you were eating that were in this consideration? Because again, want some clarity for people so they
Yeah.
go, oh God, I eat
So,
that too.
so I will tell you, because I've been very health conscious my whole life, but then especially for the last 10 and a half years since getting diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, that it would be like gluten-free graham crackers
Right.
or way too much almond butters. And right now it's sounding like, okay, but you're eating almond butter or peanut butter or something like that. But when you're talking about a whole jar, that's a huge issue.
Right.
And it was always sweet for me. So, making muffins and eating like 10 or 12 of them, which you can imagine. I'm a petite person. Sometimes I wonder where I put it.
Right.
Um, and it was out of control. When I realized that the reason these cravings were happening because I was depriving myself all the time, my body was seriously malnourished.
Oh,
And
that's
so
interesting.
so I was actually, starving myself for like a month, right? Like not eating enough because I'm a super active person. So of course I was crashing into, the cupboard saying, Jesus, get some food in you. So I think that is a big reason that a lot of women and men have this issue of binge eating. There's a lot of emotions that can come behind it also. And
Right.
I don't want to act like that was definitely part of it also.
Sure.
But what, in order to stop it in that moment, and what really helped me was I actually went back to school and became a functional nutrition practitioner, but that balanced plate, because
Right.
now my body is nourished. And yeah, I'll have a craving for sugar, but I know that in that moment, it's like, okay, I really worked out hard this morning. I bet my body needs A, B, and C.
So I think, again, that's a very common and and I appreciate you being with your honesty on all of this, because again, you're right. Someone's going to listen to that and going, she binged on almond butter, but it's about the volume of that food. And,
Yes.
even eating quote unquote healthy food, if you're eating too much of it, it doesn't matter. You're still binging. You can say, I ate a jar of peanut butter. That's okay for you. That's healthy. Not a jar. Jar is not
Right.
healthy. Right.
Right.
And so I think the real thing listening to this for anyone, it is this idea of restriction. When
Yes.
you're restricting your anything, you could be restricting what you're watching on TV, you're restricting your eating habits, you're restricting as soon as you restrict, your body's building up or your mind is building up. Well, I better get a payoff for this restriction. And
Yeah.
usually the payoff a lot of times is whatever you're restricting. If I restrict this, then I'll give it to me. I'm not going to drink for 2 weeks, but then I can start having drinks again. Versus, well, wait a minute. Why can't I have something manageable through all the time? Why do I have to stop and start? Because when you stop and start, when you go back, you're going to want more in a weird way. You're going to want to expand that in a reward mentality. But that's where you see all of these, the yo-yo effect. As I said, my one brother, he would gain 25 pounds and then hate the way he looked. He'd go on these extreme diets. He'd lose the 25 pounds. And then all of a sudden, that restriction got too much. Well, he'd ease up on the restriction. Next thing you know, he's moving back up. Then it's like, oh, I'm never going to be that thin. And then you go up a little higher. And I said, that's bad for you, versus just saying, here's how you do it. And we worked through, I helped him with a couple of things of just
That's
tracking
awesome.
his food. I just said, write it down. And when you're eating it, and lo and behold, it was just not as bad. The quality of the food, it wasn't that bad. It was
Yeah.
more the fact that he was eating too much of it, or he got hungry late at night. And instead of having something lighter, he would have something really heavy, which then restricted, or he didn't get a comfortable sleep. So I'm tired the next morning. So I need more coffee, or I need something else to get me going. And it's that vicious
That's
circle.
you up.
Right. Yeah. So it was a very interesting conversation, but to hear this. So let's move on to,
I'm going
yeah,
to
go
tell
ahead.
you one thing. I
Yeah,
love
sure.
that you got him tracking his food, because that was one other thing that really assisted me. Is I had always tracked my food, but making a weekly meal plan, breakfast,
Right.
lunch, dinner. This is what you're putting into your body, because for that, like, first 6 months of like, I had enough of this vicious cycle. That's what I did for myself. And then it was like, this is enough to nourish your body, and this is what you eat. And when you have a plan, you're going to have success, right? Instead
Yeah.
of just winging every single day. And
Yeah.
I
What I had did to him was I said, just before you start taking things away that you like,
Mhm.
I said, let's just look at it. So, and I did this years ago for myself, which was, is let's say you're making yourself a ham and cheese sandwich, just picking that ham and cheese sandwich. Well, what do you put on? How many pieces of cheese are you putting on? What else are you putting on? Well, instead of putting 2 pieces of cheese or 3 pieces of cheese, just put 1 piece of cheese instead of 5 pieces of ham. But, still have the sandwich, but put less. And so then it became, well, I had it, it still tasted good, but you restricted some things. So same thing, if you're having ice cream, how many scoops? Instead of 3, do 2. Don't go down to 1. Don't go down, take a little bit away where you almost don't notice it. And then eventually, then you can start taking and swapping and changing, because for at least him and even for myself in the beginning, if all of a sudden I said, well, I can't have this, that's all I wanted. That's all I
Right.
kept saying. Well, all I could think about. And it's a weird thing with your mind. I mentioned this in one episode. Your mind doesn't understand word don't. So if you said don't, like in sports, I learned this from a golf coach. If you say to yourself, don't hit it in the water, your brain doesn't understand don't. So it thinks you want to hit it in the water, right? Because you've brought attention to that. And so you're focused on it. So if you say, don't eat it, I mean, for listeners right now, just think to yourself, don't eat pizza. What's coming in your brain? You're seeing pizza.
Right.
Now you're going, oh, I can't have that, but I really want that. Oh, that looks good. So I said, before you start restricting things, still have it, trim down the size, then find something else to replace. And over time, and that was the whole thing again, that circles back to the beginning of
Right.
the conversation, is we're going to do this over a year,
Yeah.
right? So if for the next month, all you do is trim size a little bit. Don't have 3 pieces of pizza, have 2. Don't eat pizza at 10 o'clock at night. Have this. Don't go back for 3 bowls of pasta, have 2 bowls, whatever. Narrow, where you still feel that you're eating your things. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, I'm losing weight. Great. Now, next phase is let's see what other things we can adjust, or you do. And then over time, now you're thinking through.
Right.
2, when you're out traveling or at restaurants, you start looking at, well, why don't I have this or replace this? But you're not denying yourself. I always say that's the whole thing. As soon as you deny yourself, that's all you want. You can,
Right.
as soon as you go on a diet, well, I can't have X. I know for me personally, that's all I would think about. It's like,
Yeah.
I just want it more. So let me ask you on this and this is a good segue, because your husband travels, right? A lot. Right. Always. But he looks phenomenally. And that's Frank Lopes. For those of you who know Frank, um, he looks really good, looks very healthy, probably the best he's looked in years in terms
Yeah.
of consistent health. So for our listeners here who are travelers, their job makes them travel and they have to go out and they're at client meals, or they're taking clients out, or they're in airports and things of that nature. What are some tips that if I'm out at a restaurant with clients, and I'm out at a steakhouse or something, how do I create that healthy plate? Or if I'm I mean, there's a lot more opportunities now, or different places to eat. But even in an airport, if I have to eat in an airport, how do I build that healthy plate?
Absolutely. We are very lucky that it does seem like health is becoming a priority
Right.
overall in our country. And I think that with COVID, that really was a wake up call for a lot of people also. But the first thing I would do before even leaving the home, because you usually know where you're traveling to, right?
Right.
Which airports you're going to be in, is I take 15 minutes and I research, right? Okay, what's at that airport? What terminal am I going into? And I do this for my husband. I'm like, you're going to be going into Terminal A. I'm just making that up. There's a restaurant here. This is what you should eat. But I know, right? But now
Oh,
he's
but
gotten really good at
that's
doing
a
it
great. I
himself.
never would have thought of that. Usually, I'm the one wandering through the airport terminal, going, I know what I want, meaning from health wise. I know what I'm not. Put it this way, I know what I'm not going to go eat. Right? If
Right.
I'm passing the Dunkin' Donuts or the fast food, I don't care what it is. I'm going, well, that's not it, and I'm not having pizza. I'm not having this. So then I'm going, well, what's fast? What's easy, depending on the time, or do I not eat a meal? Is there something like I'll go maybe find an energy bar, and I usually travel with them anyway in my bag, where just in case I'll suffer through, meaning I'll just eat an energy bar and wait till I, wait till I get to some place that I can eat something healthier.
Yeah. So that was, you plan ahead and you know what city you're going to, so you can look up restaurants in the area. And then the second thing I was going to say is have an emergency backup, right? Whether that's some almonds, macadamia nuts, a bar that you know is a good quality bar that can get you through. Because look, you're not going to starve if you don't eat while you travel, right? Like chances are you're not traveling for 24 hours and
Right.
you're not going to starve. So that little bridge snack to make it to your destination will be, you'll be okay. You might be a little hungry when you arrive, but you'll be okay. Lots of water the whole time, because flights dehydrate you.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
ordering at the restaurant, don't be afraid to change the menu. Don't be afraid to order a la carte. Don't be afraid to say, I would like this fish prepared with olive oil and grilled. I would like these vegetables prepared this way. If you tell people that you have a specific dietary need, whether you do or not, most people are fine and will do it for you. They'll take care of you as long as you're not a jerk about it, right?
Right. Right.
So definitely, I am a huge like create my own meal whenever I'm at a restaurant.
Yeah, I've done that. I mean, I'll ask questions, but most of the time, even if you're at a steakhouse or a seafood or even a chain, so to speak, let's say they take you to a chain type of a family restaurant, there's always something you can find there, because most of them have meat, fish, or chicken. Most of them have a grilled version or roasted version of that with it. Doesn't necessarily have to have all the sauce on it.
Mhm.
Um, and then same thing, you can get vegetables, or you get a salad, or you get something. I've also gone creative where sometimes I will mix a couple appetizers to make a dinner, because
Yes.
they're better. I like them better. But I agree with you. I think it's don't be afraid to just ask. And again, you don't have, if you're not comfortable saying, well, tell me how that's prepared, because you're going, ooh, I don't want to be that person. But you definitely can say, if they have sides of spinach or asparagus and everything, can I just get that sauteed in olive oil? And
Right.
people go, okay,
Right.
or can I get that without the sauce? Or could you put the sauce on the side? I waited tables for 15 years.
Yeah,
So
me too.
listen, it was all about putting it on the side for a while, which was fine. And to your point is, as long as you're asking, uh, listen, there are some restaurants that they don't do substitutions, or they don't want swapping out or whatever. Again, depending on who's paying the bill, then say, well, can I just if I can't change it on this plate, can I get a side of X over here? And we'll figure it out. But that's very, very rarely
Right.
is that going to happen. And even if that happens and you're going to some really upscale restaurant, and you taste it, you try it. And so that's your cheat meal for the day, because 90% of the time you're conscious of this and you're eating healthy. But I agree with you. I think airports have done a very good job of providing options. You're seeing more salad type places, or places where they're doing, like tacos and things of that nature, where you can put things together that are healthier,
Right.
that are fine. But worst case, arm yourself with some snack bars or some snacks in there to tide you over. And listen, worst case, so you miss a meal. Not the
Right.
end of the world.
Not
Just
the end of
drink,
the world.
just drink a lot of water. And I agree with that as well. I think a lot of people do not drink enough water in any given
Absolutely.
day. I think they think they do, until you really start tracking it. And then
Hmm.
you go, oh, because I know, for me, I know when I don't drink enough in a day, because I get busy, and I'm pretty good at it, because I'm always having bottles of water. That's why I drink 2 glasses out of my 8 or 9 or whatever, 10, whatever I'm trying to drink in the
Right.
day. I knock 2 of them out, but when my feet hit the ground or before I get coffee. But there are days where it's busy, and all of a sudden I'm going, I'm dehydrated. I'm
Yeah.
dehydrated, and it's also important to eat, as you said, your vegetables. That's another thing. People will say sometimes, well, I drink my water, but I still feel that's because you're not eating a lot of water-based food, meaning vegetables, which your body needs that's another way to get hydrated and feeling good by eating all of these vegetables. That's your body definitely needs them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when I go out to a restaurant, load up on the vegetables. Like you said, I'll order a dish, but then I'll order 2 or 3 extra vegetables because
Sure.
I like food. I like to eat. And I'm not gonna, sacrifice and eat the meal that I don't want to eat. So I'll just make my own and tons of vegetables, right?
Yeah.
That's what's gonna fill you up. And it's also okay if you're at a restaurant that maybe you didn't get to pick and it's not quite the quality that you want, to not order the meat because
Right.
I'm
Yep.
and just go with the vegetables if you don't feel comfortable with it. Again, you're not going to starve with one meal being a
Yeah.
little bit lighter or not having the meat, right?
Well, that's where I go to the appetizers, because sometimes
Yeah.
you can put together a couple appetizers that are sometimes more creative and
Yeah.
more interesting, and you get a couple of those. That always seems to be a good thing as well. So all right. So we've got here. First off, I want to thank you for this. I think there's been so much great information, not just from understanding food, but also understanding the struggle with dieting and restrictions, how you've gotten your son and given him the flexibility to understand his own body as well as traveling. We have a lot in this episode as well. So first off, thank you for that. So as we wrap up every episode, we take a few minutes to just ask some random, quick fire questions, put you on the hot seat a little bit, just random questions, don't have anything to do with anything other than don't overthink them and ask. So you
Okay.
ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Tell me the one thing that you have to do every day to start your day off on the right foot.
Drink my water.
Okay. What makes you laugh? Like really belly laugh? What makes you laugh like that?
My son and his jokes, because he always has a joke for me.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So we've been talking about food. What is your go-to guilty pleasure food?
Oh, probably dark chocolate. I love like 88% or higher dark chocolate. Hue HU makes a really good brand and it's amazing.
Okay. I like that. A movie or a show that you always stop to watch when you run across it on TV?
Rocky.
Ah,
Any Rocky movie. So
there you
good.
go. All right. Favorite cartoon as a kid?
Oh, favorite cartoon as a kid. Oh, you know what? The Rugrats, which is like Nickelodeon, the
Yeah.
Rugrats. Have you
Yep.
ever heard about it? It was so
Yeah.
cute.
Okay.
And they just came back out with it.
I know,
And
and
I'm gonna,
people are a little upset about it because it looks
yeah.
too real. I was a little freaked out. Thing that you love to do or a skill you have that other people don't know you do or have.
I'm an amazing hula hooper.
Oh, look at
I can
that.
hula hoop with the best of them.
There, I
Yeah.
like that. Okay, so we got two more and then one closing one. A comic book character you would like to be.
Oh man. Probably Superwoman, right? That's a good one.
There you go. Okay, last one of this round. What's the one word that the people closest to you would use to describe you?
Determined.
I like that. All right. So the way I wrap up a lot of this is, out of all of this today, we've had a long discussion about things. If there was one thing that you would want someone to take out of all of this, the one thing they should walk away with, what's your number one thing out of this conversation you should take away, that people should take away?
To eat real food. Whole foods, You cannot go wrong. And to try to get the best quality you can also.
Great. Yeah, I think for me, it was that, but also the idea of allowing yourself time. Restrictions and rapid does more damage than pacing. That idea of you didn't gain 20 pounds in a month,
Yeah.
trying to do that is more detrimental than setting a longer term goal. And then to your point, having a plan to get through this. So Andrea, thank you so much. I really appreciate this time. A lot of great information, like I said. So how do people find you or communicate, reach out to you? Where do they find you on social media, and how can they contact you?
Absolutely. Andrea Lopes. I am on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Great. And listen, everyone listening to this or watching this, definitely get in touch with her and connect with her. She has a lot of great information that she puts out, real information. She's not selling, she's just sharing her journey and a lot of great information. So I highly recommend connecting. So thank you, everyone. If you've reached this time, again, you'll know I'm going to ask you to subscribe or share it out. There's a lot of people who could use this information that we talked about today. Make sure you leave your comments down below. Love to hear what you think about this. Every week we're here twice a week to share some interviews, share some tips to make you better. That's why we call it, you're in charge, conversations that spark change. Hopefully this gave you some ideas, some information to help you spark that change that you're looking for. And as I say at the end of every episode, you are in charge, but Andrea just gave you a few more tools to make you more successful. So we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Again, Andrea, thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you soon.